Hey everybody, it's Brayden, and today we're going to be doing some initial thoughts on Apple Vision Pro. So before we really get too much into it, obviously we're going to be unboxing it and setting it up. And basically I'm going to go over some pre-initial thoughts about this thing. So first off, I want to get out of the way. This device isn't worth it, not worth the price. That's not to say that the price is unfair. There's been a lot of research and development, as everyone's been saying. This device probably costed a ton to manufacture, and the margin on the device is actually going to be going towards making future devices lighter weight, more affordable, and I will say that I truly believe that this platform is going to be huge for Apple probably in the next 5 to 10 years. A lot of people are going to have these in that time frame. And I think right now is a really good time to start developing on it. I have some decently good ideas for maybe games or different programs you can run on this thing. That's one of the things about this type of device, is that it really gets people thinking about unique ways that they can use the hardware that you might not have seen in other iterations of this type of hardware. So first off, let's go ahead and get it open real quick. Alright, so the packaging for the device is huge. Huge packaging. We've got these pull tabs on each side. And that didn't come off fully well. We'll get the other one. Interestingly enough, these devices are packaged in the actual back of the store. So they are in the back of the store. They measure your face dimensions with an iPhone in the store, and then in the back they're actually putting together the package and putting these seals on and everything. So this device was not packaged in a factory, it was done in the store itself. So we lift off the top cover. We see the device in its nice little fabric pajamas. It's got a nice cool little cloth covering it, so that's really nice to just have as an accessory, I guess. Most headsets like this will come with something like this, especially if they have like a sort of plastic or glass front. This is probably the only headset I've ever seen with a glass front, but let's go ahead and take this off to take a look at it. So can't really tell how well in shot this is. I'm assuming it's pretty well in shot. But yeah, very classic Apple design. It just looks really good. I will say the design about this thing, that's a major thing, is I've really liked the design of this thing. So let's kind of take off this cardboard bit inside. And we'll put the device itself off to the side while we continue to dig deeper into the box. So right off the bat, we've got two little booklet style things. This is where your polishing cloth is. I'm not even going to take it fully out, but you can kind of see it there. I don't like to touch these until I want to use them. It's very good practice to not touch your microfiber cloths. And then go in here. This is where our pretty info pamphlet is. It's a very like hard cardstock kind of thing. We're not going to go through every page of it, but as you can see, it has some nice pictures. It's not an art book, but it comes close. It's really more of a sort of manual kind of thing, and it's so stiff I don't even want to open it and like crease it. But it's basically just got some instructions. That last page was for the lenses, the Zeiss lenses. It's telling you about how you can bring an iPhone up to it, which I'll do here. It's just got more pictures of how to put things on and everything. So right here, we've got the sort of spacer gasket. So this is an extra spacer gasket. These little tabs slide out. It just basically is saying, hey, if for whatever reason you want the device to sit further away from your face, here's this little spacer. Then we've got some of the goodies in this box. So right here is going to be our multi-band, the dual loop headband. This is, from what I've heard, the headband, the one that's not just the marketing headband, it's the headband that you're going to want to use. So I just want to correct myself. After about 5 hours in the headset, I've decided that the solo knit band is the only band that I'm going to use. The dual loop band was not comfortable, and not just not comfortable for long-term use, but it actually just wasn't comfortable for me at all. Probably depends largely on the size that you get and the size of your actual head and the shape of your head. The dual loop band put a lot of weight on my cheeks, and I genuinely felt like the solo knit band was just really comfortable. So honestly, I would recommend giving them both a try instead of just counting the solo knit band out, because I found the solo knit band to be usable for hours and hours on end, and the dual loop band I just won't be using again. So everyone's got different heads. That's just my thoughts. This is the battery. It's very heavy, heavier than an iPhone, heavier than the biggest iPhone. About the same size as the biggest iPhone. All right, let's try to get this peel on shot. To look at the battery unit itself, it's got a seam on the back. You could just open it up and replace the actual battery cell inside of there. We've got our charging port and a SIM eject tool spot where you can pop this fat lightning cable out. It is a fat lightning cable. I think it's a 12-pin lightning style cable. So that's interesting. They've got a lightning cable hidden in there. And then we've got our USB-C to USB-C cable for charging. This is the 30-watt fast charging brick. So I checked with the guy at the store. He said this is interchangeable. So if you already have a fast charging brick, this is the same thing. So you don't have to worry about using your existing 30-watt iPad fast charging brick with this. So a few things that I think are real challenging for this device. These are going to be challenges that this device is going to have to get past. No Steam VR support. A lot of people who are paying attention to this device might not be familiar with current generation VR devices. Steam VR is pretty much a absolutely necessary must-check box for any VR device in existence. Almost every device that exists for VR supports Steam VR. This doesn't. It does support Steam Link from what I've seen, and I'm going to be testing that probably in this video and sort of reporting on how well that works, because that's going to be one of my use cases for this device. And it should also work streaming the Xbox through a remote play. So you can do 2D games, and then you're going to have VR games that come out that are actually on the App Store. The only problem is there's no way to connect controllers to this device. Love them or hate them, controllers are pretty important for games. So there's been games that don't use controllers. They've had obstacles that they have to get over, and I think in a lot of cases they don't really get over those obstacles. I don't want to be having an experience that's like the original Kinect, where you're playing Rise of Nightmares, if you remember that game, where you're sticking your leg out to walk and you're doing these gestures to do things in the games. People are happy that there's no controllers with this, because obviously that's the most intuitive way to be doing things like web browsing and content consumption. And, you know, even with productivity, you're just going to be using a mouse and keyboard anyways, which this device does work with. Works with standard controllers, but standard controllers was the standard for the original Oculus Rift. So we've moved pretty far past standard controllers with VR devices since then, and this device just doesn't have any way to connect to any normal VR controllers. And that means that any games that are in the App Store are going to be using an Xbox controller at best. So it's kind of a tough thing. This device really isn't for standard VR games. But if you look at it the way that Apple markets it, spatial computer, it's just a VR headset, but running these 2D apps in a 3D environment and then having, 3D model support and, maybe some interesting immersion features in your apps. You're not really just playing standard VR games in this thing. it's just not going to do standard VR games. There might be some that come out, but that's not the selling point for this device. So that's one of the major hurdles, in my opinion. Another major hurdle that a lot of people are reporting on is the weight. From my very short, maybe 5 minutes max use of this device in the store, the weight didn't seem like that big of an issue, but that's coming from someone who's used the Index and the original Rift and uses the Quest Pro pretty frequently. Those are all very heavy devices. This device is lighter than the Quest Pro. Like people have said, though, the weight distribution, obviously this doesn't weigh that much. So the weight's in the front. And it has weight to it. It has a decent amount of weight. Picking it up, that is a lot of weight. I noticed this felt pretty comfortable. Everyone's got a different shaped head. This felt decent to me, but it just makes sense that you'll want to use that dual loop band to actually secure this device to your face. And then a third hurdle, the FOV. Putting it on at the store, the FOV is pretty jarring. So I'm going to be deciding if I'm going to keep this device. It's a crazy purchase decision to make because it, like I said at the beginning, it isn't worth it. I don't think you can justify $3,500. I sold a bunch of stuff to, in my head, justify, bring the price down. But that 14-day return policy is doing a lot of heavy lifting here. So I'm not necessarily buying the device to just try it out and return it. I do see myself keeping this. But that FOV could be a deal breaker because the Valve Index had like 140 degree vision FOV. I don't know if it was quite 140, but a lot more than this. And I feel like maybe even the Quest Pro might have more than this, and that has pretty narrow FOV. We'll see how much it bothers me. Depending on how much light leaks into it, it might not be a problem, because when you have light leak into it, you have things distracting from the actual lenses. That might make the issue worse. But let's go ahead and just put it on for the first time and try it out here. Should get the nice Apple logo on the outer display. For me personally, that's the only thing I like about the outer display. And I guess the cool little trippy visuals. I'm honestly not planning to set up the personal avatar or anything. I don't use FaceTime. I don't plan on trying to keep the headset on when someone's trying to talk to me. I'm taking the headset off. And that's one of the big things I didn't like about the marketing for this device is the normalization of not taking the headset off. I think you gotta take the headset off. So we'll put it on even though it's not really ready. Oh, it is ready. It is ready. So we'll tighten it up. So it's playing a little animation showing the lenses moving into place, which is one of the big benefits of this device is that it has automatic IPD adjustment. So it literally uses the tracking infrared array within the lenses to align the IPD, which is interpupillary distance, so it actually lines it up right. Every headset I've ever used, you're messing with the IPD, you're not getting it quite right, you can't tell if it's right. I like auto IPD. And I've never had a headset or used a headset that does that automatically. So this is a big, big up from that. So here we are with pass-through now. Better than anything ever that I've ever used, but not magical. So I want to make that very clear. It is headset pass-through. It is not magic. It is not see-through. It is... It's not the lowest of light conditions in here. I mean, we could turn some more lights on, but it is just pass-through. When you're moving in these light conditions that I'm in now, so I mean, tell me if you think this is dark. I don't think it's dark. When you move, things get blurry, and when you're standing still, things are very clear, but as soon as you move your head, it has this weird blurriness to it. I think these lights are pretty bright. I would say that this is pretty bright. As far as light leak, I'm not getting much light leak through my nose, which is good. At the store, in the demo, I had light leak. I'm not getting it now. But when I'm moving, the entire pass-through gets this softness put on it, like a major softness. So no, in a strange way that I've never experienced on the Quest Pro, when you move, everything immediately becomes fuzzy. And then as soon as you stop moving, it's clear. Very jarring, I would say, and it's jittering too. So the pass-through, a lot of people are overhyping the pass-through. It looks great, but it's not magic. It's just VR headset pass-through that's way better than any other VR headset pass-through. So I'm sitting here at the main setup screen. It's just saying hello in a million languages. So let's stop whining about the pass-through. I just want to make that clear. I want to get some good first impressions out here to everyone. Oh man, I mean, actually, it's pretty good. When you're not moving your head, it is really good, and wow, that is good. I can read like the labels and the icons, and that's like small text. I can read my texts. Huge. I can't explain how huge that is. Reading your texts. The color accuracy is weird. Maybe the screens look color accurate when I'm looking at a screen, but when I was in the Apple store, I was getting a very green hue from the pass-through, and here I'm getting a very orange hue. It's not too bad. I do prefer orange. And then like at the edges of the lenses, things start to go green shift. But there is a pretty big safe area on these lenses. The FOV, I don't think it's an issue. I don't think it's an issue. Like, I don't know how to measure this. Here's where my FOV ends. While normally it would go like, obviously you'd be able to, the FOV, it's a thing. I mean, here's where my FOV ends. When normally it would go down to like here. But in VR, it's not that big of an issue. When there's no light leak, it isn't that big of an issue. And then another thing I'd like to say is, even with this strap that everyone was saying was such a bad strap, this is definitely the most comfortable VR headset I've ever worn. Miles above the Index, miles above the Quest Pro. I don't know about the Quest 2 or the Quest 3. I haven't gotten much time in those because I've never owned them. I've used it extremely briefly to play like one match of Beat Saber maybe. So I don't know, but there's something to it where it's like, it's not drooping down at all. It like almost can't droop down any more than it is. On a lot of my headsets, I've noticed it droops down. You're kind of readjusting it and stuff. It's just sitting very firmly at the perfect spot. Another thing, I keep going. My eyelashes, in every other VR headset I've ever used, my eyelashes brush on the lenses. Smudges up the lenses, creates micro scratches in the lenses, puts oils on the lenses. My eyelashes are not touching the lenses right now, and I don't even have the thick cushion on. I was going to use the thick cushion because of that, because it's been an issue for every time I've had a VR headset. I never touch the lenses. The lenses are always smudged up on all of my headsets because my eyelashes touch them. I have like long eyelashes, and it's a problem. Okay, so the first thing we're doing is our eyes and hands. I'm sure you've seen this. It's doing a very cool like audio thing where it's like the Mac boot up sound and it's like a soundscape of it that's constantly going. It's like, it's pretty cool. Now we're doing the dots. So you look at some dots, you tap, calibrating the eye tracking. It has you do 3 rounds of looking at dots and tapping, and it changes the light level of the rest of the scene to make it so your pupils dilate differently. Optic ID. Go ahead and set up. So let's look here for Optic ID. Optic ID setup complete instantly. Okay, so we're at the home screen. Let's open up Control Center. I swear I saw someone mirror my view to MacBook. This is what I saw everyone doing, and no one explained it. So I'm going to explain it. You go in the Control Center. There's something that looks like screen mirroring. Something that looks like screen mirroring, and it's screen mirroring. So now I'm recording my view. Lower that so you don't have to look at that. So this is what Vision Pro looks like. This is the pass-through quality. It's my recording setup. I don't know if you can see it sort of glitching out when you move side to side, but like, I don't know, grabbing things is pretty good. This looks really good. It's doing a really good job reconstructing. I'm going to break the glass. Let's not do that. But yeah, pass-through quality, it's good. It's just when you move, can you see that? When I move the headset, things get blurry. I'm kind of getting used to it. It's not that big of a deal. We can get up and walk around, It's pretty good quality stuff here. I don't think like plugging something in, you know, for example, something that might be difficult in pass-through. Pretty much immediately nailed it. The quality is really good. Like the quality of the 3D reconstruction is really good because it's not just about getting good visuals, it's about 3D reconstruction. So first off, I want to explain control center since I think that's something that a lot of people are going to be confused about. You look up with your eyes. Someone said that you have to like look up with your head, but I think you just have to be at like level, maybe a little bit look up with your head. But when I look up with my eyes, control center pops up. I was really confused about this because with the simulator, the little arrow there is always there. But it's only there if you look up with your eyes. And then as you can see where my hand is, that's pinchable. You can pinch there. I'll just say, like, just right away, I mean, this is really good. Like, I feel like the whole eye fatigue thing that I get from more normal VR headsets, it's just not going to happen. It just isn't going to happen. Like, obviously, eventually, you know, your eyes are going to get tired. Whoa, I did that a little too fast. Am I allowed to just watch someone else's video? Maybe I shouldn't. Let's watch my video. Oh, see, I want to be able to use other fingers. They got to add that in an update. Because, man, if you could just be bloop, 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 bloop. Sorry for those sound effects, but not having to just pointer finger would be really good. We'll go ahead and watch a YouTube video here. All the audio is going to my Mac, so I'm not going to be able to really rate the speakers right now. So I noticed with the Quest, watching a YouTube video was kind of, I didn't like it. I think I like this. I could sit down and watch a video on this. I would like really, I can kind of, but barely watch a video on the Quest. This is very, very good. But, you know, let's walk up to the app and inspect it. You know, it looks good. I notice I'm not able to exit full screen by double tapping. I am able to reverse and forwards, but I can't exit it. I think that's just a YouTube problem. So I want to look at Safari. Because I know this glass stuff is pretty cool. I was hoping there'd be a little bit of thickness to the windows. It seems like it looks like there's some thickness, but they are like completely 2D. Which isn't a problem, but, you know, it's an interesting thing. I feel like it's definitely a lot more accurate on that pinch detection than the Quest. The Quest is, like, brutally inaccurate for me, and maybe the Quest 3 is great, but my Quest Pro was brutally inaccurate for me. And then this is something I didn't see people talking about until I saw some tweet about it. So cool to be able to touch and interact with the content directly. Huge. And then multi-touch works. That's huge. That's huge. So let's move that off to the side. And I'm being a little clumsy with it, but I think that's just, I'll get used to it. I don't think it's like clumsiness like it's just bad. I think it's clumsiness like I'll get used to it. And you bring it close to you and it gets smaller and more personal. Kind of like, you know, you would want it to be. So I like this style of having something right in front of you. Scrolling through it with the natural touch. Really cool. Like huge, huge deal. And then moving something far away, it does a good job of like really, really putting it out there. And then you've just got kind of the, what I would call the more lazy scrolling. Really nice. The accuracy seems pretty good. I'm sure with like really small things it could be a problem, but I'm not noticing it a problem. And then, you know, Safari's right there. This is something I kind of wanted to do. Like, what if you had like a cool little widget and you just kind of like, it kind of goes see-through when it's through the wall, which is nice. So is that really lined up with the wall? It's a little behind the wall. You just kind of put something somewhere. Like if you had like a weather widget on the wall, that'd be kind of cool. I'm about to step on stuff. But then like what happens if you really, really occlude it? Like if I just like walk into this room. I like that. So when it's occluded like a lot, it goes like dim. So you can still see it through the wall and know where your apps are, but they're occluded enough. Steam Link. Okay. Let's download Steam Link. And let's start my computer. So yeah, and what's cool is that when I'm in my room typing in the code onto the PC, I can still see the window. It's like kind of blurred out a little bit. Steam Link should be great because it's been great on the Steam Deck. My PC's Etherneted in, and I can use Wi-Fi on the Steam Deck to do this. I'm really hoping this works well because this is a major use case for me. Like I said, I mean, this is something I really, really want to be able to do on this. And we'll also test out the Xbox streaming remote play. Don't judge my gameplay, just judge the performance. Obviously, this game is not a hard game to run. You know, the streaming, it is just streaming video, so you'd notice artifacts if it really was a problem. But then the more powerful the, you know, app, or the more power the app is demanding, the less resources your computer is going to have to encode the video and all that. But it is working really well, and that's what I wanted. Let's talk about environments real quick while this is processing stuff. So I'm not going to select an environment, I'm just going to go. So we're starting the environment. You can have it very minimal. One thing I was confused about is it really like analog, or is it just there's a few different options? Feels pretty analog. One thing I can say is when you start moving it, it doesn't immediately start changing it. So like when that icon's there, then it's like ready to go. But when that icon disappears, when you're looking at it, it stays up. You kind of got to turn it a bit. So now we're at 180 degree immersed. And let's just go fully immersed. It looks better than like a Steam... Oh, look, my hands. It looks better than like a Steam VR environment, which is saying a lot because Steam VR has pretty good environments. And then on your home screen, you have an environments tab. We can do the Mount Hood environment. And this environment, Mount Hood environment, looks pretty good. I mean, I'm blocking the entire environment, but wow, look at the mountain. And then obviously it's a 3D environment. So like you can just go up and I mean, it's a big environment. You're not going to really, when you walk out of your bubble, it goes away, which is good for safety concerns. Looks pretty good. Can I even get close to the floor and look? That's funny. The ground is mapped pretty accurately. I like that. So it's not like the most high fidelity in every single part, but when you're sitting on a chair, the ground looks pretty high quality. Those rocks look pretty high quality. You can't move around in your environment, meaning like you can't virtually say, I want to be in that grass field. You're right here in the environment, and maybe you can move a little bit, but if you move too far, it's going to, disappear on you. The input lag is a little more noticeable in this game. It might be because the system's being more taxed, but that being said, I'm not seeing a bunch of artifacts. The game seems to be very performant, and the frame rate seems to be at least 60, which is good. And I'm not really going to go into any like crazy battles. I'm not going to like play for an hour on camera to show you how good it is, but it seems to be pretty good. I really like the environment. I've noticed in other systems playing in an environment, like on the Quest Pro, I would rather use the blurry pass-through than an environment on the Quest Pro because I didn't like the environments on the Quest Pro. I like this environment. It's nice. So I don't have much else to say. I don't have much else to say about Steam streaming. It works well. Like I'm not I'm not concerned about it. Um, Now that I'm using the device, let's talk about the weight. I don't care. Is that is that fair? Um, yeah, I don't know if you're a VR person. You cope. I don't know. A lot of people were complaining about the weight. I don't get it. I don't get it. I mean, listen, I've probably only been wearing it for 20 minutes. But people were saying like after 5 minutes they're like focusing a lot on the weight. I mean, who knows? Maybe after a while it'll be a problem. I'm not worried. I used VR a lot. I really love VR, and I've coped with the.
It's a tough feel to it.
I've coped with the weight and face pressure of VR for a long time, and it might just be my specific face shape. And they have these different sizes of the face shield and this, so maybe depending on the shape of your head, you're gonna get a face shield that doesn't quite fit right, even if they match it to you. But yeah, I'm not having a problem with it. So let's launch Skyrim real quick without remote play. It's surprisingly good. I don't think I would really choose to play like this. If the Xbox remote play didn't work at all, maybe. But the Vision Pro is doing a great job of actually displaying this screen. So right off the bat, it's not as good as the Steam streaming, but it's working. Now, one thing is, let's compare the actual visual fidelity difference between this and that. So this has better visual fidelity, but the jankiness of it isn't great. And I think connecting the Xbox to Ethernet would work here, and I'm willing to do that in order to get this to work as good as possible, or as well as possible. But it's working, and that's the main concern. I mean, I'm not going to go through and get it to work best case scenario, but I mean, obviously the frame rate looks better when I'm watching it through the pass-through. Steam Link worked really well, but my PC is connected to Ethernet. I will give more thoughts at some point in the future, but let's take the headset off just so I can see the world again. Yeah, real life looks a lot better, doesn't it? Oh wow, your eyes adjusting to this much brighter area that quickly is kind of a weird feeling.
All right, so after 5 hours in the headset, how do I feel about it? Well, I feel like it's both amazing and mids at the same time, but not compared to the competition. Compared to the competition, it's just amazing. The headset does so many things just as good as all the competition. Maybe has a few things that people could prefer the competition over, but then it does so many things way better than the competition that overall this headset is way better than any of the competition. That's probably to be expected for $4,000 or $3,500, which turns into $4,000 if you want the 512 gigabyte version or whatever. Then, plus the taxes and everything. So probably $3,800 at cheapest. I would just want to get a few initial thoughts out there, starting with the band. I know I already touched on this, but that solo knit band is genuinely the most comfortable band I've ever used on a VR headset, in my opinion. When I'm wearing that, the weight, it's there, but it's probably more comfortable than any VR headset I've ever worn. And I haven't used the Quest 2 or Quest 3, one of the biggest quote-unquote competition. At $500, it's not just competition, it's like the obvious option, but I haven't used those, so unfortunately I won't be able to make much of a comparison. But compared to a device like the Index or a device like the Quest Pro, the Vision Pro with the solo knit band was much, much more comfortable. And also, One of the good things about not having the even weight distribution is that it has this nice cloth band on the back of your head. I was laying my head back at a chair. I was laying my head back on pillows. I was laying in my bed. I would never do that with the Quest Pro. I would never do that with the Index. So this is kind of a unique use case for the Vision Pro. And it's almost like something I could see is necessary. Like they couldn't put a battery pack back there because resting your head on a chair wearing this headset just feels like you're watching TV. You'd rest your head on the back of the chair normally. Why not be able to do it with a headset on? It'd be a pretty big limiting factor. So as far as the bands, the Solo Knit is the one that I like the best. And that could be completely different if your head is slightly shaped differently. The only problem I had with the dual loop was with the shape of my head. It put a lot of weight on the cheeks. It just didn't make a proper weight transfer of the headset no matter how I adjusted it. Maybe if I got a bigger size dual loop band. I never thought that my Solo Knit band was too small. It seems perfect size. But maybe the dual loop band I would need a bigger size. Or maybe it's just that with the shape of my head, the dual loop band just isn't going to work for me. But I didn't have any issues with the Solo Knit band. I'm very happy putting that on and using it for hours. And I used it for hours, like straight. Like I used it for 5 hours just in that one day. I sat there and I was gaming on it. I was watching YouTube streams. I was testing all this stuff out. I was testing out Spotify, which really didn't work. We'll get a little bit more into that soon here. But let's see. The next thing I'd want to touch on would be the lenses and the pass-through. Because they're kind of tied together, obviously. The quality of the lenses and the properties of the lenses are going to affect the convincingness of the pass-through. So as far as just the quality of the image is very good when you're looking at your sweet spot. The sweet spot is decently big compared to the Index, but it almost seems like it might be a smaller FOV than the Quest Pro, and it might have more color shifting and warping on the edges than the Quest Pro. And that is not a problem for the digital content. I had no problem with my digital content being outside of the sweet spot of vision or being cut off by the FOV, but it affects the convincingness of the pass-through, which already has its own flaws. The pass-through is not magical. It's really good. It's better than anything I've seen on a headset, but it is not magical, and the way that the ads kind of represent it make it seem like it's just as real as can possibly be. But the color temperatures are different than the real world. You put on the headset and it's either going to be warmer or cooler. I sat at the Apple store, I put on their headset and it was very green shifted. Everything looked like it had a green layer on it. At my house, everything is very orange shifted. And there's these environments that allow you to change the color. It's very strange. There's these environments that allow you to kind of change the color way of the pass-through. You can make it more orange, you can make it more white, you can make it more blue. And you could use that to correct. I didn't find them to be something I would want to keep on all the time, but if you really had an issue with the color, you could use that to correct for that. And I'm glad that's there because it's definitely a good option. The wobbliness of the pass-through when you're moving, it like gets blurry until you stop moving. When you're walking, every step you take makes the pass-through kind of like go... It's hard to explain it. It just kind of like, you can see a visual thud with every step. Honestly, it didn't really bother me that much. I kind of got used to it, but it's not like this one-to-one real-life pass-through. And then obviously graininess, it's there. It's not extremely grainy, but there's graininess there. And when you're looking at something, if you're like walking around and part of your room isn't fully lit, and there's kind of a dark spot, it gets pretty grainy there, and it just looks like a camera pointing at a dark spot. Another interesting thing is I noticed it was like changing the exposure and then adjusting the general brightness of the lens to compensate for that. So just randomly, my environment would get brighter, and so would all of my content, and then it would get darker. So I don't know what that's about, but that was an interesting thing that affected the convincingness of the pass through, and also um, it definitely affected just you viewing your content. It's kind of distracting for it to just be changing brightness. I couldn't find anything about um, disabling that because I already disabled the full screen auto dimming feature, which is a nice feature to have, but I don't like it. I just like to be in pass through and have my video playing. But yeah, overall the pass through is kind of convincing. Kind of. When you squint your eyes, it's really convincing, but I think any pass through would be really convincing when you squint your eyes. I mean, it was interesting. Like at one point, I was like resting my eyes and closing them, and I opened my eyes up again, and I knew I had the headset on, but for a second, my brain thought I was looking at the real world until I fully opened my eyes. It's the 3D reconstruction and the responsiveness of it is top tier, like better than anything else. And I haven't used the Quest 3, but it's better than the Quest 3. I don't even need to use the Quest 3 to say that. This is amazing. It is really good. But the FOV comes into play. Your FOV is a little bit cut off, and it doesn't really affect, like I said, it doesn't really affect the digital content consumption, but it does affect the effectiveness of the pass-through. When you're not seeing your full FOV, you're not convinced that it's real. And obviously you're not trying to convince yourself that it's real, but you're trying to convince part of yourself that it's real, right? You're trying to ignore the fact that you have the headset on and make it seem like your windows are really floating. It doesn't seem like your windows are really floating in real life. It seems like your windows are floating in a virtual reconstruction of your real world that's very good. And, you know, if you cope a little bit, then it's a really great experience. But it's not this magical thing where it's just the windows are floating in your real world. It just isn't. The FOV is a big detractor from the immersiveness of the device. Even if it's just affecting like the pass-through or the environments. Because when you can't see your full FOV, there's no getting over that. It's not really a problem, like a huge problem in my opinion, honestly. I'm happy to use the headset. It's really great, but I mean, I can use it for hours. But it's just not what the ads make it look like. I noticed there's no issue with like black space in between your eyes. Your brain kind of, the FOV overlaps to where in between your eyes would be, and your brain patches it together and it looks fine. It doesn't look like there's a black line in between your eyes, but there's sort of like a rounded black box going under your eyes, to the side of your eyes, and above your eyes. And it's very noticeable. It's just a constant reminder that this is first gen, and this is something that is going to be solved, guarantee, in future generations of the device. So this is going to be one of the defining characteristics of this first gen device. And I think also the pass-through is going to get considerably better. But for the responsiveness of the system, and for just the way the interface works, the capabilities of the device, I think it is a very, very, very good device. As we continue to see more Vision Pro native apps be made for it, it's just going to get better and better. Spotify doesn't have an app. You can try to use their website, but that brings up another problem. Some websites and iOS compatible apps don't really work well. Sometimes their behavior just isn't the same as if you were using it on an iOS device. And for the websites, sometimes they just don't, it just doesn't seem like you're clicking on the right things, or you're trying to scroll and you're trying to scroll on like your playlist on Spotify, and you're scrolling up in your playlist. And then it thinks you're scrolling up on the whole page, and it refreshes the page, because you know how if you scroll up too far on a page, or you scroll, you fling it down and it refreshes, it'll kind of do that. So the behavior of stuff like trying to use a web app like Spotify, or a iOS app like Discord specifically, it doesn't really respond the same way it would on a real device. There's like when you click to add a photo, the little photo drawer comes up and it's like tiny, and it's not pulling up all the way. And some of the things in Discord you can't really use the eye tracking to do. You have to go up and touch it. Like I was noticing hitting the send button, you had to bring the app right up to you and touch it. I could not hit the send button with my eyes. And just in general, I noticed on some iOS compatible apps, the eye tracking just seemed to not work for every element. So it's just an interesting thing. It's not the biggest barrier. It sounds really bad. And I think that's definitely something that's going to be corrected for as new apps get released and developers sort of refine things. But the iOS compatible apps are not going to necessarily behave exactly like they do on iOS. And websites are not a given. YouTube worked pretty great. The only problem I had with YouTube was exiting a full screen video, but it doesn't really matter because the only thing that was an issue was clicking the YouTube UI. There's sort of a native video player UI to exit a full screen video that worked perfectly, and that's a general theme of the devices. Anything that's like a native vision interface thing, so any native app, any native UI, it's tracking really well. When you're at like the limits of the lens, when you're really looking up at something with your eyes, the tracking might go a little wonky, so you might have to adjust your head so that it's more in the center, because the eye tracking is much more accurate around the sweet spot. You kind of got to think of, now there's an eye tracking sweet spot. So we've always had the visual sweet spot on VR headsets. Now we have an eye tracking sweet spot. So you got to keep that in mind too. But just overall, this device is miraculous right now. A great platform for development. I think as the device gets updates and as the device gets more developers on board, this specific piece of hardware is going to get a lot better. And then we'll have the future generations of the device down the line. But there's a lot of potential even for this device to get more usable, to get more loaded with cool apps, and to just become better in general. So I'm really excited for what comes for the Vision Pro. I hope you are too. I mean, don't let that price tag make you not pay attention to this, because it's interesting to think about, and it's definitely going to become more available over the next few years. I think this device is headed for mass adoption. Not the first gen, not the second gen, but down the line, 5-10 years, I'm talking. Mass adoption. I'm serious. Like, people are going to be wearing Google Glass sized devices. It's going to be normalized. We're going to be wearing these devices. It's going to be AR, mixed reality, whatever. They're probably, instead of using pass-through, they're going to find a way to make transparent screens really well. This device in this platform is going to be mass adopted, and I think right now is a really good time to start developing for it, start getting a feel for it, and maybe start making a name for yourself in the development sphere. So I hope you enjoyed my video, and I hope you have a great day. Let me know in the comments what you are thinking about the device, whether you're going to make the crazy decision to buy one. Even though I love the device, I'm still not sure I'm going to keep it. 14-day refund policy, like I said, is doing a lot of the heavy lifting on this decision. It's a huge purchase decision, and it's not quite magical, but it is at the same time really weird. But yeah, I'll keep you posted if anything cool happens in the space, specifically for the Vision Pro, and we'll see what happens. Thanks for watching. Bye.